So we're here at SMRRRF in Oxford with Millennium machines. We got Jake England here.
Yep.
And you are the main driving force of this thing.
I'm the original designer for...
Original designer. So what are we looking at here? Because this is a 3D printing convention.
Yep.
That's not a 3D printer.
No, it's not a 3D printer.
What is it?
So, everyone knows what 3D printing is. It's an additive manufacturing process. You add layers on top of a lot of things. It's quite what you guys are used to if you're on Nero's channel. What we got over here is the exact opposite of that. It's subtractive machining. Subtractive manufacturing. So instead of starting off with plastic that's in a spool or something like that, you start off with a big block of aluminium and you take everything away that's not the part that you want. So you've got some examples of those over there. There are a few mistakes on that. That's user error, not not machine error.
So this is a CNC machine. This is a vertical mill.
Yeah, this is a vertical mill. So this is Milo. This is v1.5. We had the first one that was actually released to the public was v1.4, so the last version of this. And then we've got some work on some machines that we might have in future as well going on. But for now, this is what we're putting out to the public and what kits we're manufacturing for in the future. Okay. I say we. Other people are manufacturing them.
Okay. So CNC machine is something people that get involved with 3D printing, a lot of them kind of dabble in CNC. You have like the 3018 and some entry-level stuff. But entry-level CNC is a fickle beast.
It really is. It really is. So the biggest thing with entry-level CNC that I find that a lot of people make the mistake of is you're not putting, if you're going from like the 3D printing CNC side of things, you're not putting the effort in where it needs to be the most. So for example, I've seen a lot of people making joints and things out of 3D printed parts. You should never, in a CNC machine, rely on a printed part for a precision piece or a structural piece. So what we do here is everything that is 3D printed is stuff that will work by itself. So it's not structural in its origin.
Okay, so like covers and shrouds and whatnot.
Yeah. So like motor mounts are fine, but you wouldn't want to have a riding surface, for example, that is 3D printed.
Okay, awesome. So this machine, you can self-source this machine. You're working on, LDO's working on a kit.
So LDO's working on a kit right now. You can self-source a kit. It's very Voron style. We're very inspired by the Voron guys. So you can look, you can go on our Discord page or Reddit and find some links, or to the website, find some links to the bomb. It's almost exactly the same as the Voron self-sourcing kit bomb. It's all UK based at the moment, but we do have lots of people in the US who have built parts. Head on to the Discord, talk to them. They'll be able to help you out there as well.
So what are the actual capabilities of this machine, like speeds, print volume, all that?
So,
correction, not print volume, machining workspace.
So at a baseline, the 3D printed version can cut any non-ferrous material, so aluminium and anything below that, so brass, copper, things like that. You obviously got your woods. I wouldn't cut a composite like carbon fiber on here because you would probably need to submerge it on the water, and having the water bed kind of fly around isn't the greatest thing in the world. But anything else like that. When you start upgrading things, so we do recommend a few upgrades when you start. First one is the aluminium plate over here. That just helps with stability of the machine. And then second is a mod called the FMJ, which raises the Z-axis height a little bit and makes the whole Z-axis assembly a lot stiffer. Once you've got those two things going, you could probably start eking your way into mild steels. Aramco, who's one of our team members in Germany, has gone all the way up to 5160 steel. Sparks flew, so I'm not going to say I recommend it, but it does work out in your favor every now and again.
So is this running servos or steppers?
Steppers.
So this is steppers, you got lead screws.
Yeah. So you're looking at a resolution of give or take a few units, 0.01 millimeters. Aramco, again, he's managed to get his down to like 5,000th of a millimeter.
Okay. So you were saying a printed version earlier. So if you build this, you would start it with printed parts?
So it's completely bootstrappable. You can start with printed parts. So like I said, the plate down here earlier was originally on this machine, plastic, fully printed. When you get the machine up and running, you can mill it. That one was milled on this machine itself. The FMJs, you can't do on the build volume of the machine. But if you're in the US where you have cheap laser cutting, somewhere like Send Cut Send, I think Canada does it as well. Those are like $40 and they're a huge upgrade.
Okay.
And then there's another mod called the Hearts of Iron. It's not on this machine yet, but it allows for for a metal mounting system, but with the same shrouds.
Okay.
Yeah. Those can be done on the machine as well.
Okay. And what spindle are you running here?
We're running LDO's version of the kind of generic cheap Chinese spindle.
Okay.
This one's a 1.2 kilowatt spindle. Sorry, 1.5 kilowatt spindle. You can get a 2.2 kilowatt spindle as well if you wanted to. They're both supported. Anything that is 65 millimeter to 80 millimeter,
okay,
you can put on.
And this is a DIY machine too. You're building. So if you wanted to go all out with servos and ball screws, you could do that if you wanted to.
If you guys go on the Discord, there's a guy called Alex Trevor on there. He has servos on everything. He's running Linux CNC. It's a mad build. It's really cool to watch.
Okay. Yeah, that's the awesome thing with DIY machines, seeing what people end up doing with them. So I'm looking here. This machine, like the electronics, obviously nothing in here. This is an enclosure. So
So the enclosure is separate to Milo. So if you wanted to build Milo, it's its own thing. It stands alone. If you wanted to, you can put the electronics under this box here and just mount the VFD to the back, to the rear of the column if you wanted to.
And the VFD is for those that don't know?
The VFD is the thing that controls the spindle. Okay. So normally, if you have one of the cheap kind of 500 watt spindles, it's just a potentiometer. You let enough current through. What a VFD does is it takes single phase power, chops it up into 3-phase, and then runs the motor off of that.
Yeah, and actually we could take a look here because the electronics aren't mounted on this machine. They're part of the enclosure.
Yeah, so the enclosure is its own thing, and you can mount the electronics in its own little compartment as well.
So we have the VFD over there, power supplies, Raspberry Pi. So what's this one running on? This is Linux CNC?
So this one's running on Linux CNC. This is kind of Dave's special sauce that he's working on at the moment.
Okay.
We would normally recommend RepRap firmware, just because a lot of people don't know this. RepRap firmware has its own dedicated CNC command. It's literally one G-code command that you put in the setup. It's G508 or something like that.
And it just tells it's now running. It just
tells it's now CNC machine. It works perfectly fine. It's really good for people coming from the 3D printing world. It gives you an interface kind of like Clipper. So you kind of just run it on a web server. You have it on your phone. You can tinker on the machine kind of thing.
And you would probably like a Duet 3 for that? Or
no.
You can do a Duet 2?
Nope.
Oh.
So I don't run Duet hardware at all. Duet hardware, as good as it is, it's prohibitively expensive, I think, personally. We've seen a kind of influx from companies like Mello and even some from Big Tree Tech boards that support RRF. It's all part of the Team Gloomy kind of kind of port.
And do you know what kind of drivers they're running on those?
I run 2209s.
Okay.
I run a 5160 for my Z-axis.
Okay.
Just the same kind of Palula style drivers that you can get.
Awesome.
The one that he's driving there is a Spider King from Physek.
Okay.
But he's running it through a Pi with something called Remora to run Linux CNC on.
Oh, awesome.
This is the kind of more high-tech version of it.
So if somebody had a machining background, they'd probably go to this.
Yeah.
And somebody from a 3D printing background would probably go into the RepRap.
Yeah.
And then maybe change to this. Or it depends on your use case and what you're looking to get out of the machine.
Exactly.
Awesome.
If you wanted to as well, you could, with RepRap firmware, you could technically get away with running a 3D print head on here if you really wanted to.
That's true.
So you could do kind of dual action machining, print something and then machine it to the dimension.
And what's the volume, the workspace volume you have on this machine?
So a standard build, plastic build, is 60 millimeters in Z. And that's mostly just because we have the shoulder here. The actual travel is 120 meters.
Okay.
Your X travel on a standard build is 340 millimeters, I believe, if I can remember correctly. And it's 140 millimeters in Y.
Okay.
The X is expandable if you want, the Y isn't. And so and the Z is also expandable.
Okay. Yeah, because that's, for those that have never really dabbled in CNC, with 3D printing, there's no forces on your tool head if you're doing it right, unless you crash.
Yeah.
So CNC is the exact opposite. You're removing stock. You need to have rigidity in your system because there's cutting forces on that tool head. There's a lot of force going on there. So you're not going to be getting those 300 by 300 by 300 volumes, unfortunately, with CNC, unless you want to spend a lot of money.
Speaking of that, one of the mods that we do have here is called the FMJ, the Full Metal Jacket. It's those plates that I showed you earlier at the back.
Okay.
They stiffen up the Z-axis enough that you could probably easily enough run 120 millimeters of Z travel. So that's what this machine's running right now, and that will do aluminium easily enough, maybe even mild steel.
And you have a Z offset probe there. And this would work too with like, oh, you got one right here, a little touch probe for picking up your offsets, because you have work offsets, you have machine offsets. CNC, it's you can understand it if you've never really done it, if you have a 3D printing background, but there's a lot more to it.
It's a lot more
involved. So, any coolant system on this machine?
So we don't spec it with a coolant system. There are some mods out there. It's easy enough, really easy, to just find a bit of extrusion that's not being used, put a mist cooler on there.
Okay.
Dave is planning eventually on this machine to put some flood coolant on there, hence why everything's waterproof, like waterproof switches and all that.
Okay, that makes sense. So you're going to do a flood system on here? Nice. That is cool.
I'm just locating myself roughly in the center here. And then I'm going to go probing. And I'm going to press this one.
People say CNC. It's just a mill. It's an effective process of anything. But the control mechanism is the same.
So this is finding the center point at the top to set a WCS in the center of the workpiece. And it does a classic fast probe, slow probe mechanism.
Yep.
Okay.
So do you tell it like a rough size of the block, and then it...
Yes, so up here you can see I've given it a hint. That's a hint of X, Y dimensions.
Okay.
And then it goes to that plus a bit, comes down, comes in to probe the edge. And then it's going to move to the center point, and that's your WCS updated. And up here you'll see the measurement for the block, so it's 111.17 wide, 63 deep, and you'll get your actual X, Y, Z positions. It'll set where your offsets are, and they're stored over here in your G54 coordinate system, and that's where the default one for when you load in a toolpath, it will update to, and this will basically, the whole toolpath will move to the updated WCS position, and then you can run it.
Awesome. So if somebody's interested in learning more or building one of these machines, where can they find out the information?
So your first port of call would be www.millenniummachines.com. From there, there's links to our Reddit, our Discord, all that kind of stuff. I suggest joining the Discord. The website is fairly new, so we're still getting that set up.
Awesome. That is a cool machine, and I can't wait to build one. Well, thanks for chatting.
Always, bud.
Videos from this year's Sanjay Mortimer RepRap Festival are brought to you by LDO Motors. For printer parts, kits, accessories, and more, check them out at the link in the description.